What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chaotic Minds. As always, it is me, Winged,
And a midget.
and we are back. No
I
guests
am playing
today.
the part of exhausted pigeon.
No guests today, which, if you guys did listen to last week's episode, I do apologize that my audio kind of sounded a little weird, and our guest Undead's audio was a little loud.
He's naturally that way.
Well, no, it was on me.
Uh.
It was on me. I needed to adjust volumes, and because he's our first guest.
It's an accident.
Yeah.
You
So
live and you learn.
going forward, that will be fixed when we have our, whatever guest we have next. Join us over, a call or whatnot. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyways, how are you?
Exhausted pigeon. 48 hours and 4 days.
Woo.
Woo. I will have a grand total after tomorrow of 56 hours in 5 days, which means 16 hours of overtime.
Very nice.
Plus an extra 12 hours of holiday, of that is holiday pay.
Yeah.
So you're looking at
A
16,
decent
26,
chunk. No, we're not gonna do
28 hours of $34.50 an hour.
We're not doing math.
Math.
Anyways.
Anyway.
So there are a few things that, there's at least like.
My two topics tie in together, but we're going to talk about the funny one at the end.
Yes. So my topic is a little more serious. It is actually affecting a lot of TV shows and movies and stuff like that. The writer's strike that's going on right now.
We should talk about that first.
Well, that was the plan. Hence the reason why I brought it up. So for those who don't know, the writers
like
out in
me.
Hollywood are on strike, and they have been now. It's coming up on, I believe, 50 days. The longest strike that is like writers' strike that has happened, I believe, happened in either the 80s or the 90s, where they were pretty much wanting better benefits. I mean, writers.
Well,
how
look at
it
it
used
that
to be.
way.
Well, so how it used to be, after the first strike happened, was writers would pretty much be set in a job once they were chosen for about a year. So like they would take 6 months of writing whatever needs to be wrote, and then once the script was wrote and they started filming, the writers would actually be on set to maybe adjust some lines,
Make adjustments.
make emphasis like, hey, you're supposed to be more like this, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then once all the recording was done, then they would go ahead and help out with the editing.
Yeah.
So that way they can make sure that everything flowed the way it was supposed to. And like sometimes that took a year, sometimes that took a year and a half or even longer. It all depends.
With garbage pay.
Oh no, they had decent pay.
For the 80s.
Yeah, well, for 80s and 90s. Like up until here recently, i.e. like COVID, everything that happened with that, everything was great. And then once COVID hit, everything started switching more over, less cable, more streaming services. So the directors and pretty much the higher-ups in Hollywood decided, oh, well, the writers don't actually need to be there for any of these other things. The only thing that they need to do is write. And sometimes writing can take up to 6 months. Sometimes it takes like a month. It ranges. And so writers aren't getting pay on top of that. Not only are they being overworked by having to write all of these, all of the scripts, but then on top of that, they have to be going ahead and lining up their next job
Before this one's even over.
at the same time. And so they said, no, we're not doing this. And they authorized, the Writers Guild went ahead and authorized a strike. And they have been on strike, like I said, for about 50 days, more or less, like right around that area.
See, and that goes along the lines of what we have talked about a couple of times before in our show is the emphasis in pay that we put on some of these movie stars or sports players or something like that, when if the writers aren't around, then
They
shit's not getting wrote.
Exactly. I mean, the last
and
time
nothing's going to be able to be made.
the last time any sort of like strike-ish stuff happened was when Conan O'Brien grew a beard.
God, I remember that.
Like,
That's
that
crazy.
For those couple of days or that short amount of time that they were having issues with it, they went on strike and nothing got done. No new episodes were recorded. No, I mean, other than stuff that was already set up and already had the script for it. But past that,
and that's
nothing was done.
Is like the writers are the backbone.
They really are.
Of shows, movies.
Like, a lot of people
all that.
A lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I mean most of humanity, puts all of this emphasis on
this actor's so great.
This actor's going to be in it, so the movie's going to be fantastic. This actor's going to be in it, and it'll be meh. Who is this person? Oh, that must be a trash movie. And like it like that's why these movies tank and bomb. Now, granted,
my thing is they're paying these actors millions of dollars for a movie.
Yeah, and
they're paying these writers. They're barely able to pay their mortgages.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, do you remember the movie Push?
Yes.
One huge name in that movie. Do you remember who it was?
No.
Dakota Fanning. And the only reason why she was like one of the biggest names of that movie was because of the War of the Worlds that she did with Tom Cruise. Everybody knew who Dakota Fanning was. She was pretty much being cast in everything, kind of like how
her sister Elle Fanning is now.
Well, not even that. I'm talking more like Chris Pratt is now. Like
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. When back in the 90s, Jim Carrey, had all these movies coming out. Like,
you couldn't step into a movie and not have a major name in it.
Yeah. But a lot of the other people, when that movie came out, weren't really known, which is a shame because that movie is fantastic.
It's a great movie.
I love that movie. It does get a little confusing at times, and I will fully admit that. But the movie itself tries to go ahead and explain it later, and they definitely set it up for a potential sequel that probably isn't going to ever happen because of how poorly it did.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that the movie flopped because the writing wasn't good.
No, the writing was great.
Writing was fantastic. I think the movie flopped because a lot of people were like, I don't know who these people are other than Dakota Fanning. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit there and watch it. Now, taking more modern here, Morbius. Morbius in theaters did horribly.
Yeah.
And I don't blame the writers for that.
Is that the one that came out right after COVID lifted?
No, so that one has Matt Smith in it. And it has, like, so in the DC universe.
Okay. I know what
there is Batman, Bruce Wayne, and then there's Batman, or Man-Bat. It's pretty much, this guy has a genetic problem, and he's doing research to try to cure it for himself and his best friend, who is played by Matt Smith. For those Doctor Who people, yay. Game of Thrones people, I'm not a real big fan of Game of Thrones. So he's doing a whole bunch of research and finds a gene that can help reverse or help treat some of the symptoms that he's gone through. It just so happens to be through like a form of a vampire bat. Does testing, everything looks like it's okay, and so he tests it on himself and ends up being turned into this Dracula type figure, but with more morals and less I want to do this, and more along the lines of I get pissed off enough or I get hurt enough and I inadvertently release the beast.
Well, and I mean, and you've got movies that are like that, okay, that are doing poorly. But there's one that came out in the movie theater and they ripped it out within like a week or two, And now it's on, I believe it's Peacock. It's got Nicolas Cage playing the vampire.
Oh, Redford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that failed miserably, but it's supposed to be hilarious. And it's got Nicolas Cage in it.
Yeah.
Like,
the problem with it is, I don't know. Like,
we should probably get back on track.
That type of movie is more along the lines of, like, it's supposed to be a parody, but also kind of be serious, like expand a mythos. And, it had Nick Cage in it, but who else did it have in it? And even in that case, Nick Cage is the bad guy.
Yeah.
He plays...
At least he's not sparkly.
That is true.
And at least they kept lore and tradition the same with vampires. You have to invite them in.
Yep, and like a lot of the other stuff with it too. And then they expanded Redfield's lore as well. Like in the stories of Dracula, Renfield. His name is Renfield.
Oh.
In the lore, like, he helps out Dracula. But what happens after that? And they just expanded on the what if. And the writers did a fantastic job on that.
And that's what I'm saying.
But now that everything is, there for a while, the Screen Actors Guild were toying with going on strike, standing firm with the writers, and then their deal went through, but they're still they're still supporting them.
And I mean,
the Directors Guild, same thing. They're threatening strike, and they're in support, but nothing, like the writers, like nothing is happening with the writers.
And it's
like they can't seem
I think
to
it's
connect.
going to be a while. But the thing is this is, I hate to say this is a time-honored tradition, but this happens with different areas of business, expertise, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Where certain people will go on strike because they're no longer, how do I put this? They're being treated as subhuman.
Yes.
They're not being treated as worthy as.
Take a look
as
at it
worth
like,
it as in this case the actors.
Well, take a look at it like this: like screenwriter, like the writers, right? For me, writers are in the same boat that the teachers' unions are.
Ain't none of them get paid enough.
Like a couple years ago, we had the teachers' unions here in Colorado go on strike, and like nobody went to school until everything was done. But granted, it was done. It was taken care of within like a couple of days. But they made
no, it was a couple of weeks, and the only reason they went back to school before then was because they had substitutes, and then they started falling short on substitutes, and it was a whole thing. But the thing is that's another one of those things that would be solved simply, like a lot.
Give them what they're worth.
Give them what they're worth, for one. For two, stop making them buy their own supplies.
Well,
like
that's
art
for
teachers.
That's for teachers.
Yeah. Even writers. Like, they're responsible for the upkeep on all of their stuff. They're responsible for the upkeep on, like, their computers, their writing implements, their recording devices, the stuff that they want to use to, like, they're responsible for all that.
Yeah.
But if you pay somebody what they're worth, they're not going to have a problem with being responsible for that.
No.
For one. For two, like with the writers and the teachers alike, you give them what they're worth and you do a little extra, it's not going to kill a production company.
Well, that, and, in regards to the writer's strike, Hollywood and anything that comes out of Hollywood, or, like New York, so like Saturday Night Live, or, something like that, these big places where all these, like, all this stuff is coming out of, everybody groups it as Hollywood, but it's not just Hollywood. Anyways, moving on. Hollywood's at a standstill, and they are like a multi-billion dollar, like, enterprise.
Yeah.
All in all. And yet you're paying these actors millions of dollars for so that way they can play a role, and you're raking in hundreds of millions into the billions of dollars,
Avatar is one of those movies.
And you can't pay your writers. You can't take care of the people who are driving you forward. I mean, you see this in like, you typically hear about something like this in like some little pissant company, like small in like local thing or even multi-states, where all of these executives are getting all this money, but yet their retail people, the face of their companies,
the actual workers,
aren't getting shit.
I mean, hell, and this is something that's gonna probably not surprise you, but at the same time, it's a little bit of a shock because we're supposed to be the greatest country ever.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me tell you something. The indie films and like Bollywood, that's what it's called, Bollywood, the Indian films and stuff like that.
Are you talking indie films, like independent films, or are you talking like the nation of India, like Bollywood style?
I'm talking about both. If you look at both and you look at what the movie brings in, say Bollywood movie, okay? You look at what that actual movie brings in. And you look at how much that each of the people get paid. The writers in Bollywood get paid just as much as the actors.
Oh, yeah.
The writers in indie films, they don't get paid until it's picked up and produced. But
here's where I'll disagree with you on that. Here's where I'll disagree with you on that. Because 9 times out of 10, the writers for the indie films are also directing and starring in these indie films because they're independent films. Like, they don't have like a Blumhouse or Warner Brother or you know shit like that.
But if they have anybody that comes onto their set, they're going to pay them fairly.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Is like you can walk onto a Warner Brothers set and the janitor is going to get paid peanuts.
Yeah.
You walk onto a Bollywood set, that janitor is going to be like, "Hey, you get X amount of money out of what the film makes." Plus, half the time they're like, "Hey, you want to try being in a movie?
Do you want some food? Do you want some
like
something
they
to drink?"
take care of people.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's what we lost here. Like we stopped giving a shit.
What we lost is the sense of community because we replaced community with capitalism
and selfishness.
Anything that can be turned to profit will be turned to profit. And we don't care who we have to step on or step over. I mean, you hear talk and stories about like these small towns with like mom and pop shops, you know, small grocery stores.
Golden.
And then all of a sudden Walmart comes knocking on their door like, "Hey, we want to build something right outside of here." And if they're able to, the mom and pop shop shuts down. The grocery store is like gets next to nothing, and everything starts being funneled into, you know, Walmart.
And see, and that's the thing. Like, there's a Walmart up off of, I think it's like 32nd and Youngfield up in that area.
Yeah, I've been up there.
And that's considered golden. It's northern golden, but still golden. Okay.
Yeah.
But there was a little mom and pop shop in downtown Golden.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go there all the time when I was with my ex, Brandon. I used to go in there all the time. I loved it there. You could get everything from clothing to, granted, it wasn't name brand or anything.
Yeah, it was like, you know,
smaller creators.
Well, not only smaller creators, but like knockoffs or like, I can't think of it, like Garter. I can't remember.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I would.
And groceries, some of the best fruits and vegetables I've ever tasted.
On the table at that point.
Exactly. And they had been in operation for over 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
That Walmart moved in, they were gone within 6 months.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, we had that back home.
Capitalism.
We had that back home. You know, some of the areas that I lived in or I traveled through, like I would make a stop at like some, you know, off the, you know, middle of nowhere, like Lancaster, and there'd be like a gas station, and I'd have to stop in there because I was heading to like some appointment or heading out to meet friends or whatever. and I'd swing in there to fill up on gas or get a snack and get some drinks. And before I realized it, there were times where I was spending like half an hour inside the store just talking with the people, getting on. And then I'd go by there like 6 months later, and there's like a Sunoco or like an Exxon or like
Mobile
a Walmart with a fuel station in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the place that I used to go to all the time had a sign that said, "Sorry, we're closed."
Yeah.
And they'd
and
be
that's
gone.
sad.
But going back to the writers, it's the writers that drive these things. Like,
Yep.
Without the writers,
like I said, they are the backbone.
Without the writers, you don't have anything. You know what you have? You have a bunch of people standing around being like, "I don't know what to do."
Bunch of people standing around being like, I have an idea.
Unless it's a bunch of comedians, and then you can probably make up a movie with improv, and that's it.
Yeah. I wish they would do like a Whose Line movie.
Well, I mean, like, a lot of, like...
with an impractical Joker's twist.
No, take, like, Blue Collar Comedy Tour, right? Movie. Actor, or comedians.
Yeah.
Telling jokes. And just random, some of them random off the top of their head. Some of them, they have, like, a set, like, I'm going to say this joke, and this joke, and this joke, whatever. Didn't really have any writers because the comedians were writing their own jokes.
Yeah.
Get something like that, you could probably make a movie. Get somebody like, I don't know, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and
all those other big name
Robert
stars.
Pattinson. Actually,
Sorry.
I heard the new Batman movie was pretty good.
I've heard that too, but I cannot bring myself to watch it after.
But you get people like that, and they act. Now, granted, Ben Affleck has been leaving the silver screen to be more behind the scenes and be a director, which is fantastic.
He's learning a lot more stuff.
But, I mean, you get some of these people who are just dedicated actors or actresses, and it's like, what are we supposed to do? This doesn't make sense. The script doesn't make sense. What am I supposed to do?
Thumb up my butt and wait around.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the writers are like sweat pouring off their brows, stuck in like 12, 13, 15-hour shifts in a room
this size with like
typing
20 other people.
And trying to figure out, okay, we got this scene and then we're going to go in this scene. What are they going to say? What are we going to do?
Who's writing this scene?
Who's writing where the camera should be placed at? What angle? Like, what should they be looking for? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's all writers. Like, I was an assistant director for my church.
Mm-hmm.
We would get scripts from the pastors to be like, okay, this is the order that we're going to go through. And there were times that we would be on point. My director would be like, all right, get ready to switch to this camera now. And, we would be given like bullet points.
It was all written in there.
To be like, hey, we want to emphasize this point. We want to talk about this point. We want people to connect on this point and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying anything bad about my church because, well, some of my church. But
capitalism.
I mean, but like the writers are making the director's life so much easier by doing this, and now they're
making the actors' lives,
and then making the editor's life easier as well, because like
they're pulling double duty.
They're pulling triple duty
at least,
and they're not getting paid. They're getting paid for like half of one.
And that's the thing is like that's what I don't get. Like I understand greed. Okay, whatever. Capitalism is a thing.
I will never understand greed.
I get it. Capitalism is a thing. Let's not do that. That's going back and, like we've said before, repeating the same fucking mistakes in history and wondering why things did not change.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't expect the country to progress and the country to get better and things to look better if you're still going to treat your writers like slaves. Because it's basically what it is.
Granted,
you barely get paid a livable wage.
Well, that's the thing. Like, at least the writers were getting paid.
Yeah. But that's my thing is, like, you're barely getting paid a livable wage.
Yeah.
Some of them don't get paid until after the movie comes out, depending on how much the movie makes. Like, you have all these issues when, okay, yeah, cool. the actors come in, yeah, they work hard. They have to memorize lines. They have to do all that.
Sometimes there's fight scenes. So, like, most actors have stunt doubles, but some actors, like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, some actors.
Keanu Reeves.
Tom Cruise, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah.
In some films. They do their own stunts.
And that's the thing is, like, yeah, they work hard. They really do. They do a lot. They bring a face to the movie. But you wouldn't have a movie to be in if the writers aren't writing it.
Yeah, like you wouldn't have all these people that you want in your movie.
And newsflash, guys, they also help create the sets.
Well, kind of.
They come up with the ideas for the sets. They don't build them, granted. But, okay, we're writing this scene. This scene would look really awesome with a park background or...
Yeah.
This type of stuff. And they're involved with more, like you said, more than just the writing aspect, and they're getting paid for less than what they should be as a writer.
Yep.
For everything that they do. And
it's
that
frustrating.
Makes no sense to me.
It's irritating, and it's like,
capitalism is real, but it sucks.
At times. I will take capitalism over communism.
Yes. I'd like socialism even better, because then everybody actually has health care.
Well, then everybody's equal.
Yeah.
But that also goes hand in hand with communism. But anyway.
Let's everybody pay the same amount of taxes, 10% flat across the board, and freaking give everybody health care. Then you won't have the obesity pandemic.
Well, I mean, it's not epidemic. 10%. It's not 10%. Like up in Canada, depending on how much you make, you get like 50%. You can get 50% of your shit taken, but they also have better. Everybody gets health care and
college education.
Yeah, so like that I can understand.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like make it to where, I hate paying taxes, but if healthcare was paid for and I wouldn't have to worry about medications, diabetes testing supplies, like pain meds for my migraines, like if I didn't have to worry about paying for any of that, I'd be like, cool. Let's exactly. My kids get free college? Here, take even more of my money.
Yeah.
I would not care. I don't care if it's your kids, my kids, next door neighbor's kids, the kid from down the street. If they're getting an education, they're learning something, they're probably not selling dope or shooting people.
You would be surprised.
Well, it all depends.
You would be surprised. But no, I mean, I guess like to wrap this segment up.
Stop treating people like shit. Hollywood.
Writers Guild does a lot, and I wanted to take time to
acknowledge that
and draw more attention to it, because maybe if the more attention that gets pulled to it, maybe things will go ahead and get better faster, rather than we can't make this deal. We can't make this deal. We're refusing to make this deal. No, you call it out. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Let's fucking go.
Or, hey, you might see some more
support,
more fluid movies coming out. If you're going to treat your writers like crap, they're not going to give you a good quality product.
Oh.
Let's face it.
Oh, they're
works
just gonna,
for pretty much everything.
Retail,
at
that point, if you're not treating your writers right, at that point they're just going to get a whole bunch of chimpanzees, put them in a room with a typewriter, and see what the fuck happens.
The Simpsons have predicted less.
I mean, Shakespeare predicted that, or I don't know if it was Shakespeare. somebody predicted that.
They literally had the writers.
No, I know, but that phrase came from before The Simpsons.
I know. But you know what I mean? It's like if you pay your writers, if you start paying everybody equally based on the job that they do, then you might be surprised.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get some bangers. So second thing, I don't know about you, but I have had some issues in the past with transportation. Getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, like it's still in high school. I wanted to go anywhere. Chevrolet legs, hop on a bicycle.
Or
I used to ride like mile and a half, maybe up to like 3 miles for one job. And then for another job, when I got out of high school, I was going through like 2 towns on my bicycle, up over a mountain back home, you know, just to get to a job. I didn't. I that was my that
I
was my way of
once
getting
rode
around.
my bike from Colfax and Sims all the way up to Westminster Mall.
I don't know where that's at.
92nd and Wadsworth.
Okay. I once rode my bike from Edders to New Cumberland back in Pennsylvania. And I had to go through Edders, Yoakumtown, and then into New Cumberland. And we had a mountain that was in between called Research Summit. And
Not really a mountain, it's more of a hill.
for you, maybe back home, that was we had, granted, we had taller mountains, but it's still a mountain. But like I used to ride that, and I'd make it there. Like I think the fastest I made it from my house to work was like 15, 20 minutes on a bicycle.
Yeah, my bicycle.
I was not obeying the speed limit.
I was riding a bicycle from Colfax and Sims up to, like I said, 92nd, 94th, and Wadsworth, wherever. It's way up north.
Anyways.
I rode it up there. It took me an hour and 22 minutes.
Yep.
My legs were like jello.
But, I would rather, here recently, with us having a car, and then one of them, going down, and we're currently working on getting it taken care of.
Yep.
Your car, not mine.
Right now, we have 2 cars that are like paperweights.
No, my car works.
My car works. My car runs.
Your car doesn't run.
Well,
it's dead.
I need a battery.
Anyways, but no, like, what is your thought on public transportation versus like taxi / Lyft / Uber? If you had to choose one for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
That's difficult because some cities have a public transit system that's free.
And actually works.
Here, everything is good on Monday through Saturday, but Sunday, it's like bend over, grab your ankle, stick your head between your knees, kiss your ass goodbye, because you're either going to show up 2 hours early or 3 hours late to something, because buses don't run. Public transit does not run very often on Sundays or holidays, which I get. Holidays, yes, I get it. But Sundays, people do this thing called work. People do this thing called go to church.
People do this thing called, not being home.
And that's the thing, is like if you depend on public transit, which right now I am depending on public transit, it's been really difficult. It's either take public transit like RTD or Light Rail, which is the same company, that type of deal, taking that public transit and taking the risk of being late somewhere because of the scheduling.
Or being there way early.
Or you pay out the ass like Uber, Lyft, and taxi.
I will never use a taxi ever in my life.
Ever again.
I had a bad experience with one. And at that point, nope, it ruined the whole thing for me. I can say I've only had, of all of the times I've used like Lyft or Uber, I've only ever had like one incident that was like I would consider bad. All the other times, they were fantastic. You get in, if you want to talk with the driver, you can, but like depending on what the temperature is, it's either nice and cool inside the car, or it's warm. You get to have a conversation. You don't have to drive, or if you just want to sit in silence, you just sit in silence, and everything's all good.
That's like me. Over the last 4 days, I've taken a lot of Uber because, having no vehicle and it being so far that public transit is a nightmare at that time of the morning.
Yeah.
But like for me, I've had during that 4 days, I've had one driver that was a safety issue and one driver that was just complaining about everything. Because if you reserve, say I needed a ride tomorrow,
Right.
which I'm going to take the RTD tomorrow, our
Mhm.
public transit. If I needed a ride from Uber tomorrow night and I didn't want to forget, I could reserve it. But if you reserve it, you pay like 2 to 3 times as much for that trip
Yeah.
because it's a dedicated person guaranteed to be there.
When
Whatnot.
you are ready to go.
Exactly. But this lady was bitching. She goes, "Did you reserve it? Because they charge you, if they charge you like $35 for your reservation, then they still only give us the same amount as if you were to just ask for it right then and there. Like if I was to reserve one
So pretty
for
much putting the
tomorrow,
blame on you rather
yes,
than the company.
if I was to reserve one for tomorrow and say the reservation costs $35, they would get only a portion of that.
Yeah.
But say like, oh shoot, I need to go down to work. They just called me in. I got an Uber. It would only cost $9.
Right.
They'd still get paid the same amount.
Well, I don't know. So like
Oh no. That's what she was bitching about.
that. Well, that's what she was saying. Probably in an attempt to get you to tip her more. Because of all the times that I've ever ordered like an Uber or a Lyft and I've scheduled it, I've not once ever had anybody say anything like that. They actually thanked me because they're like, I knew that I had you on my docket, or my
Schedule.
rotation, and they went ahead and they put me over in this area because they knew that I was coming. That you were next, that you needed to be out there at this time, and so that was fantastic. Thank you. You're actually my last one of the night. You're my first one of the morning. Whatever.
Yeah. But
like, I've had one instance where it was a safety thing because the guy was on his phone while he was driving, drifting in between lanes. On top of that, he had a cup set up in the back where I was sitting at that said tips.
yeah.
And when I got in, he was like, hey, how you doing? Typical greeting. But then I saw him catch my eye in his rearview mirror and then look down at the tips and then look back up at me with this expectant like, are you going to put anything in there?
Yeah.
And I promptly took out when I left that ride because he was not a very good Uber driver or Lyft. No, it was Lyft. He was not a very good Lyft driver. Again, on the phone while he was driving, drifting between lanes, almost missed 2 turns because he was more focused on his phone. I looked him square in the face through the rearview mirror and dropped a quarter into his tip cup and then left. And he gave me a bad review.
Mhm.
What he didn't know is that I had videoed and sent that video to Lyft because I was like, this is what's going on with this driver. And never saw him again.
See, and then I had the one with the safety issue. I kept hearing dinging, like dashboard dinging.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to glance over, and 3 of his tires are at 27 when they're supposed to be 44.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, oh, don't mind that. I've got nails in them. I've known about them for a couple weeks. I just haven't had the time to go get them fixed. So he's driving 45 and 55 in a 35 or 40.
With underinflated tires.
With nails in his tires.
Mm-hmm.
Turning left out of the parking lot where where I was at, which had a no left turn sign.
Yeah.
And
You reported him.
oh yeah, and all they compensated me was $5.
Oh yeah. Now
Wait,
here's
what?
here's the cons for me for public transportation. It does take longer. Because depending on what bus, like if you're on a bus, good Lord, God forbid it's a packed bus because you don't have anywhere to sit.
Colfax.
You're surrounded by people.
Broadway.
and everybody wants to hit every stop. Like there was once I was on a trip, and there was one person who pulled the thing, say, "Hey, this is my stop." They got off. Not 300 feet from that stop, somebody pulled for the next stop. Like, why couldn't you get out and walk
To 300 feet. I know.
So you have to worry about that.
Weather. Idiots that are driving.
Idiots. Whether or not the the bus or train is going to be there on time.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they run early, and by the time you get up there, they're pulling out and leaving. So now you got to wait for the next one. Or sometimes they're late, and you're like, "What the hell?" Which then puts you late. Which is why I always leave. Like when I was taking the bus and the train, I would always leave like a couple hours before I was supposed to be anywhere, just that way I could make sure that I was going to be there on time.
Yeah.
And even at that, I was there like an hour early, which, granted, that's what I normally would do, but still, like, I could have taken that time to like get something to eat, take a nap, whatever. I will say some of the pros though. Did you meet some really cool people?
And you don't have to worry about paying for gas or insurance.
You don't have to worry
about
that. On some of the trips that I've been on here in Denver, there's always been there's been RTD officers.
Yeah.
Making sure that everybody
Security.
is doing what they're supposed to and not doing what stopping what's not supposed to be happening.
Like people getting on the trains and thinking that they don't have to pay.
Or, trying to spark up or make a deal or, get into a fight or whatever.
You've got all kinds of wonderful people out there.
And like the light rails that I've been on have been really nice. Like nice and comfortable, nice and cool. You get some really cool scenic views, So, I mean, there are pros and cons for it. But if you had to pick between public transportation and Lyft, Uber, taxi, what would you pick?
Public transit.
Okay.
Because here in Colorado, with the Clean Air Initiative, this month, July, and next month, August, are free.
Yep.
Which is really cool. But like I said, public transit should be free to begin with. Like, they shouldn't charge. It's $3.80 each direction in Colorado now.
Oh. See, when I was riding it, it was like $1.50.
Yeah. And then, like, you get student discounts.
You can get transfers for like a quarter.
No, you get transfers for free.
Oh.
But
that may have been back home then.
Then you have, like, people that are on assistance, like SSI or food stamps or Medicaid. They have a special thing that you qualify for where it cuts that price, the normal price, in like half, which is awesome. But if you're barely making ends meet as it is, that's still going to be hard.
Yeah. You're scraping together all your pennies.
Exactly. And it's like, I happen to think that public transit would be wonderful for a lot of people. And I mean, now, if you think about it.
Especially in inside of cities, public transportation should be free.
Yeah.
Like downtown Denver, Colorado Springs, Harrisburg, New York, if you're living inside the city, should be free. And that would take out the need for cars, a lot of, personal vehicles.
I mean, think about it. We have a son who wants to get a driver's license, but right now doesn't really want a vehicle unless he can find the one he actually likes.
Yeah.
A lot of people his age in that generation are not even getting their licenses.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with the responsibility of a 2,000-pound vehicle.
Well, I mean, yeah.
They don't want to deal with the responsibility of an added bill of a car payment or insurance.
For that, it will depend on where you're at. Because, like, California, like the coastal cities, they are very much like, why do I need a car? There's a bus. Comes every 15 minutes.
Colorado.
But then, like, you get some, like, down south or more toward like
in the rural areas.
well, not even in the rural areas, like Atlanta, Savannah, like down south area, you know, so even out in like Missouri and whatnot, people are younger kids, younger people are wanting their own vehicle because they want to do.
They want to be able to have more freedom.
They want to have more freedom, but they also want to have their own thing. Like they want to have a car and modify it and soup it up and have it in a way that they want it.
Which I
sometimes
get.
Sometimes it's lifting, sometimes it's lowering, sometimes it's putting, different size tires
Cherry
on it.
bombs.
Cherry bombs, mufflers, paint, underglow, stuff like that. They want something that is identifiably, this is
theirs.
Mine.
Yeah, and I get that. I really do. But then you've got these people that have a license and a vehicle that really fucking shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like people that hit sis on I-25. Street racers
90
on
miles
the
an
highway.
hour.
She has had that vehicle less than a year or just over a year. It's right around a year.
2 years.
But you know what I mean? She's barely had that vehicle very long after the last idiot
hit
her and totaled her car. She got a new one, and then now the street racer fucking ruins her car.
Yep.
Like they give licenses to everybody that can
if you can
articulate.
If you can pass a written test, if you can pass a preliminary short-term driving test.
Like they take you around a couple of blocks.
My driving test took like an hour and 20 minutes.
Mine took 25 minutes. We pulled out of the parking lot at the DMV.
Well, I'm talking like overall because I had to sit there and wait for the instructor to get done with his previous one. But once I got into the car, I had to do a 3-point turn. I had to do parallel park, and I had to drive around 2 blocks, and then come back and pull it into a spot, and that was it.
So mine was literally 25 minutes. Got in the car, checked all the lights. That took about 5. Made sure all the bells and whistles worked. Testing to make sure it's a safe vehicle to take on the road. Pull out. Went up to Alameda from Mississippi and Sheridan-ish, up to Alameda, turned right on Alameda, went down to another street, took a right, went down to Mississippi, and then back over to the DMV. And there's no parallel parking anymore, which is ridiculous because I wish I would have learned sooner.
You can't parallel park.
I can parallel park better now than I could.
Yeah, thank you. Or you're welcome.
Yeah.
Both thank you and you're welcome. Thank you for not fucking up tires, and you're welcome for teaching you how to do it.
My point. just like one of the things that if they were smart, they would require you to learn how to drive a manual transmission.
Yeah.
Because if more people learned how to drive a manual transmission, A, they get better gas mileage.
Yeah.
And B, you can get a job pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
If you want to be a mechanic, you have to be able to drive a manual transmission. If you want to work at the emissions place, you have to be able to drive a manual transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said,
I don't know how to drive manual.
I know. Trust me. My body remembers that you do not know how to drive a manual.
I stalled out 3 times at one stop sign. Don't try to act like we were driving, and I dumped the clutch like a couple of times.
No.
We had made it to a stop sign.
We were still in a damn parking lot.
I made it to a stop sign.
Killed it
stalled
3
out
times.
3 times. Put that sombitch on fucking e-brake. Put it in neutral. Left the car running.
Got
while
me
you were
out.
laughing, walked over to the passenger side, picked you up out of the car, put you gently on the ground on your butt. On the driver's side, went back over to the passenger side, sat down, closed the door, put the seatbelt on, said, "Fuck it, you drive."
And that's my thing. It's like the things that you learned in Pennsylvania when you got your license, or the things that I've learned in the past, and the fact that part of the requirement for me to even get my permit from my dad was I had to learn to drive the truck.
Yeah.
And the truck was a manual. It was the dually, and that thing was a fucking beast.
Yeah.
If I could drive that thing, I could drive anything on the road with 4 or more wheels.
My mom growing up was the only one who knew, was like, she knew how to drive stick. Like my dad knew, but he preferred automatic.
Yeah.
My mom preferred manual.
I prefer manual.
My mom refuses, even now to this day. I am 35 years old. My mom still refuses to get into a car with me sitting behind the wheel.
Oh, when I told her that I was one of these days I was going to take her on a margarita safari, I was going to drive my vehicle out there and have her get in and be like, "Aww," and she'd get in the passenger seat or in the driver's seat, and either she'd drive my car or I'd drive her around. I wouldn't care. Like,
yeah.
I think it's cool.
But
That's one of the things.
We've gotten so off topic here.
Hey, normal.
Anyways, so yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I would prefer free public transit
Yeah.
over having to deal with a taxi ever again. However,
The
here's where I'm gonna
convenience
differ.
of Lyft and Uber.
Here's where I'm going to differ. I prefer Lyft.
I have had terrible experiences with Lyft. Uber, I've had only one bad issue with.
Lyft, I've had issues with both companies. I prefer Lyft because in my particular instances, they were considerably cheaper than Uber.
Uber, to order something to get to my work, $9 and like 54 cents, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Lyft, to order it right now to get to my work, $34.
I was paying, when I was doing Lyft, when I was working out in Centennial, before I got the car, it was $25 one direction through Lyft. Uber, $44 one direction.
Yeah, Uber was only to get out there, if I was to order it right now, where I was the last 4 days, was $15 and some odd cents.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes $14 and some odd cents. No more than $16.
Mm-hmm.
Lyft, $55.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nope.
Well, I think that'll wrap up that
This subject.
segment.
Let's move on to the funny.
And go into the last one.
Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen probably will happen.
No, that is not Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
I'm trying not to make it seem so bad because sometimes, yeah,
It's bad.
true. Never
You
mind.
can't, don't try to sugarcoat it.
Anything that bad that can happen probably will happen.
And probably already has happened. You just haven't realized it yet.
Like, and this ties the public transit and the vehicles in this into one, is just when we seem to be doing fantastic. Like, I love my job. My boss trusted me enough to ask me to cover a vacation in a location where I should probably have a taser, but I didn't. I still don't have my taser. I will be getting it next month. But she trusted me enough to ask me to cover that 4 days of vacation when I had never been over there. I don't have a taser or anything like that.
You have a knife.
I have a knife. But the thing is like, I love my job. I love everything. And then Thursday, I went over on over there on a Sunday. Thursday, some jerk.
It was not Thursday. You were ready to go to work. It was on Sunday.
I don't remember.
It was on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because I turned around and took the Uber. Yeah,
Yep.
That's right. Never mind. Anyway.
We found out that we needed to do a tune-up on my car.
The hard way, because some jerk, this lady, I'm telling you, Murphy's Law. The car was running beautifully. I just topped off the oil and the fluids. Like, everything was good. Running a little rough, but it's because we needed an oil change and a tune-up. And she's just waving me across. And then as soon as I start going, she bolts across the lane. It's like she was trying to get hit.
Oh, she was.
And then
Trying
she
to get that
flipped me
insurance.
off. She flipped me off
Oh, she
when I
was mad
slammed on the brakes.
She was mad because you didn't hit her.
And this thing is like, really? And then all of a sudden the Jeep died. And I was like, the fuck?
But we did figure that out, and we are in the, we got it most of the way back up and running. We just need to grab something. And it will be back up in tip-top shape.
And mine, hopefully, will be solved in
About a week. Week and a half.
well, not even that.
Week and a half.
Well, one problem.
Wednesday. And then it takes about 3 to 5 days to get there.
Plus, I want to get the relay. Plus, I want to get I have to get a new battery.
Yeah.
I just still got to figure out how the fuck I'm going to put that in because I don't know if there is a latch on the
There is.
inside.
Anyways. But no, Murphy's Law it sucks, but it's
part of life anymore.
it's not even like you can't really call it like a law when it comes to like life, but it happens so frequently that everybody's like, it's Murphy's Law.
Barbed wire baseball bat. Here you go.
Yeah. I mean, it's it is humorous at times.
It
like
is.
sometimes you are like gung ho and you're like, this thing is gonna work. And then you walk outside and somebody hits you with a water balloon, or, somebody mistakes your car for somebody else's and punctures a tire, or like you you have everything set for a beautiful Sunday, beautiful dinner with family. And then whatever you're cooking gets burnt. Or in my personal case, when I was younger, my dad and my grandpa, my poppy, burnt a frozen pizza in the oven. When they went to go pull it out, it fell through the grate and landed on the heating element.
Yeah, and that's the night of Pizza Hut.
Yeah, that is the first time that I can ever remember my grandparents, my nonna and my poppy, my nonna from Italy, my poppy from
Bronx, Brooklyn.
Yeah, from like New York, ever ordered pizza.
Yeah, because
Ever.
Italians don't do American pizza.
And like me, my mom, my nonna, my sister weren't even in the house. It was just my dad and my grandpa, and my dad and my poppy. And we come home, and there's a little bit of you can tell like there's a little bit of haze inside the house, and there's that real obvious smell of smoke. And my dad and my poppy are sitting down watching a baseball game with a beer in hand, and there is the charred remains of what was supposed to be dinner on a pan that was not hot.
Yeah.
And that is how we found out that they tried to just stick it on the grate, and when they went to go, it started to burn, so they went to go pull it out, and it went straight through mail slot style.
I've been there. But it's like, I mean, that's a funny part of Murphy's Law. I think the worst one that I can think of, Murphy's Law, everything was great. Everything, like, I had a trip booked on Greyhound because I used to love riding on Greyhound, which is another transportation thing. I
hate Greyhound.
I was crocheting my grandfather a blanket for his birthday. Everything was fantastic. I get about 5-6 hours outside of my stop, and I get a phone call saying that my grandfather was in the hospital intubated.
Yeah.
And that they didn't know if anybody could come pick me up from the bus station.
Great.
So I walked 19 miles from the bus station to Samaritan Hospital because I didn't know any numbers for any like cabs or anything like that. I didn't know.
And this is back
public
before
transit.
This is back before cell phones.
Oh no, this is still with
Oh,
when
you
I
could
had
have looked
stuff.
it up then. That's your own fault.
Nokia.
Like the brick?
Yeah, the indestructible blue and
Oh,
silver
yep,
one.
Yep, you're fucked.
Yeah. And it was one of those track phones.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all I could afford then.
Yep.
I crocheted a blanket. Because Nathaniel was born, but I didn't take him with. And Matthias was born, but I didn't take the kids with me.
I thought this was supposed to be funny.
Oh no, this is a bad one. You've got the funny side of Murphy's Law, and you've got something like this.
Well, you granted,
So,
with everything, with all the good, there is bad.
Exactly.
But, like, you don't want to focus on the bad.
Exactly. But, like, I've had that terrible experience with Murphy's Law. And then I've had the pleasure of watching Karma and Murphy's Law come together and create a shitstorm of hilarity.
Yeah.
And cause problems or issues with somebody that I used to have near and dear to me. And are no longer near and dear to me because, well, some people don't change.
They decided to run to Mississippi?
Oh, no.
That one, or?
I'm more talking about the oldest son's sperm donor.
Oh,
He not only got slapped with child support from me, he got slapped with child support from his other baby mama, who has a son, Alexander, who's only 4 months younger than Nathaniel. And he also got sued for child support for a child that's in between those two. So all three people he got hit with child support for.
Yeah.
And he, until the court case that we had in 2017, he hadn't spoken to Nathaniel since he was 6. Hadn't seen him since he was 5.
Yeah.
And then turn around and he's like, well, I can't get a job. I can't do this, can't do that. Well, buddy, if you would have paid your child support or not laid down with so many ladies without protection. I was the only one that used protection and I still got fucking pregnant.
Yep.
Like, that's Murphy's Law for me. Like, I was trying to get help for my migraines. Yeah, you're pregnant. Fuck.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, that's the hilarious part of the beginning of that. And then at the end of the story of that was Tim getting sued for child support by 3 different ladies for 3 different kids that he has nothing to do with, doesn't take care of, doesn't help with, nothing. And then he loses his license because he's not paying child support. And then because he doesn't have a license, he can't get a job because he's not paying his child support. So it's just a cosmic turn of events. And Karma was in the front seat driving that bus that ran him over. And then he went back to school for engineering when we were having our court case.
Yeah.
And he got kicked out of school because he couldn't pay the tuition because he didn't have a job. And it was just this vicious cycle. And it's like... Karma. She's a bitch, but she's great when she's on your side.
Oh, yeah.
Karma and Murphy's Law had a baby that day. Gotta say that one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, like, for me, Murphy's Law is, like, it's hit me in different ways. You know, a lot of them were, some of them were bad. But I think the funniest thing for me when it hit me was one night I was riding home from work. I was riding my bicycle home. Was about 5-10 minutes away from my house. And it's night. So, of course, I have the lights on. I have my front headlight on. I have my back light on. I'm following the law for that. And I start going down this hill, and this car swerves in front of me and into my lane. I decide to put myself first and jump off my bike, ditching it. Thankfully, it didn't get hit, but I threw myself off my bike onto the side of the road. And I landed in a briar patch, which sucked. Got cut up a little bit because of the thorns and got some scrapes and whatnot. Other than that, it was perfectly fine. Next morning, however, I'm waking up and I am itching like nothing could ever cause it to stop. And I look down and I realize that I am covered in poison ivy rashes. And not only am I covered in it, but so are the scrapes and scratches and cuts on my arms, because when I landed in this briar patch, it was littered with poison ivy. So it was it was bad, but it was funny at the same time because, of course, me being being pretty allergic to poison ivy, I don't even need to touch it half the time. I'm just stand near it, and I'm ended up itching all over the place. I of course I go ahead and I get covered in poison ivy. It's just be wary with Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Have backup plans to your backup plans. If something, if you have that gut feeling that, this is that something could happen, just have a plan set in case. So yeah. Was there anything else that you
No?
No, you good? Well, then I think we're gonna call it here. Thank y'all for listening. We really do appreciate it. Welcome, Apple podcast people who are people who are listening to us on Apple. We finally were able to get that up and running.
I won't say my opinions on that.
Yeah, well.
Apple products.
Any personal preferences aside, we are now on Apple Podcasts as well as all the other major podcasting things. You can, if you listen to us on Spotify, we're also on Google Podcasts. We're also on iHeartRadio. We're now on Apple.
Yeah. So we're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, we are everywhere.
You can listen to everything.
If you do want to support us and you do like what you're hearing, click the link in the description. Any little bit helps. We're not telling you, hey, you have to do this. But if you feel that you want to.
Any donations will probably go to our vehicles.
Well, or other things. If you are listening to us. Something like that. If you are listening to us on Spotify, download the episode. It shows Spotify that you like hearing us. You like what you're enjoying it. And it gives us some insight on hey, we really like this episode. This one was okay.
Give us topics, people. Sometimes we can't figure out what to do, and that's when we take the week off because we can't figure out what to talk about.
Well, in the past.
Yeah.
But thank y'all for listening. We really do appreciate you. As always, remember.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. And don't forget to love each other.
Oh, and if any of our friends on Discord are listening, like Undead.
No.
We love you.
We love you. No. Stop it.
You told me not to be a dick.
Stop it.
Bye.
Bye.